one fellow I was reading about recently who has been growing azalea in just gravel with moss on top of it. And he says as long as you're watering enough, then everything's fine. If you don't water it, you don't feed it enough, it's going to drop dead on you or it's going to get really sick on you. So at the end of the day, whatever potting mix you're using, it depends on how you treat it, how often you water, how often you feed. So, you know, it's like giving you, I don't know, a jar of coffee to take home. How strong do you have your coffee? How much sugar do you put in it? How much milk do you put in it? All that sort of thing. So, you know, everyone has their own mix, and everyone's comfortable with it because they've not been watering and feeding this mix, growing this mix for I don't know, decades. So, yeah, I'm just suggesting or throwing some light on some other materials, I guess. And I guess giving you trying to explain some of the benefits of it. And I use the composted pine bark, so that's it there. It doesn't have much dust or fines in it. It's about a 5 to 8 mil. You're bound to get smaller bits in there, and you're bound to get some dust on there. But it's composted, so it's not going to, and it's aged, so it's not going to cause nitrogen lockdown in your potting mix, and it's going to last for, you know, a good few years. If you have a tree that doesn't need repotting for a few years, you can be relatively comfy with the fact that that can sit there and it can stay in that pot for 3 years. I don't have to worry about it too much. I don't have to worry about the potting mix turning upside down on you and, you know, the pine bark turning upside down and causing dramas. And obviously the same with the inorganic stuff. It doesn't really break down. Beauty of the inorganic stuff is you can, to a great extent, you can recycle it. You can sieve out all the organic dust, you know, fine roots, anything, you know, anything that you don't want in there that might clog up the pot. You can kind of sieve it out, wash it out, whatever you want to do, and then, you know, put this stuff in the sun a few days, a week, whatever, let it sort of sterilise, and then you can reuse it. I try not to reuse on the same thing, so if I'm repotting azalea, I try not to use the stuff from the azalea on azalea again, because I worry. I tend to use it on, you know, deciduous trees or something like that, just because I think, well, I don't want to take the risk. So, yeah.
Where do you get access to your pumice?
I bring it down from New South Wales. So I get it sent down to me from New South Wales. Yeah.
What do you think of the difference between, say, pumice and scoria? They're very similar, aren't they?
They're kind of similar. They're both volcanic in origin. Pumice is it's like a volcanic glass. It comes into contact with water and it turns into its current form. It's very similar to perlite. Perlite is a man-made cousin of pumice, so it's done in a kiln, but perlite is like foam. A lot of people don't like it because it's white and it floats, but in my opinion, if you have, sorry I'm getting a bit off track, but if you have perlite in your mix and you're watering, say, with a fine, like a watering rose or like one of those nice Japanese watering cans, it tends to just put a soft shower of water on the soil and it doesn't really displace it that much. Anyway, its difference to scoria is that it will hold more moisture than scoria, and it's a lot more porous. Scoria tends to be, you know, a little more nice and bubbly on the outside, but unless it's like the really fine dusty material, it doesn't hold all that much moisture.
I've heard, I don't know whether it's true, that scoria tends to provide homes for mites and things. Have you heard that? Have you had any problems with that?
I haven't, but I can imagine that any soil potentially could provide homes for mites. I mean, I see them running around on my trees, and I think they're just there, and depending on what you've got and how bad, you know, how heavy the infestation is, you've either got a problem or you haven't. I don't know that you can actually do anything about mites anyway. I don't think you can actually control them.
There's drenches and sprays, but they're not always the nicest things around.
That's right.
What about bluestone screening? Have you used that at all?
I've used that as a ballast in the bottom of the pot. So, commonly I'll put like a 5 to 20 mil, or whether it's just, blue metal or
Yeah.
scoria, I'll put it in the bottom of the pot like this just to provide drainage. I like to, sometimes I like to fluff around and do that layering thing where you've got the really coarse material at the bottom, and then you've got a section of, medium material, and you've got a little section of finer material. I'll play around with it and I'll experiment with it, but quite often I'll just have a mix like that, and I'll just put something coarse in the bottom, then I'll just dump that stuff in and put the tree in. That's it.
I make a lot of foam rocks and things, so I have a lot of scrap foam around. I've often used that as a base in the bottom of the pot, purely and simply to raise the soil level and to make the pot lighter if it's a big pot.
Yeah.
I find that works pretty well.
Yeah, okay.
They send a few roots into it, but not a lot.
Yeah.
And the root system becomes more compact.
Yeah. Well, look, I occasionally I'll put a pebble or a broken bit of pot or roof tile under the bottom of a seedling or something like that to try and get the roots to spread out. But sometimes I find that that also acts as a bit of a cooking stone to some extent, because you put I've had quite a few casualties with azalea where I'll put one of these rocks or tiles underneath, and if I don't bury the plant deep enough, it heats up and dries up the top half of the roots, and the whole thing's dead. But look, a lot of this stuff is quite light. Like your pumice is about 0.8 tonnes per cubic metre, so it's lighter than say quartz gravel. The diatomite is lighter again, it's about 0.4, so the diatomite's half the weight of the pumice. The zeolite is tends to be about 1.5 tonne per cubic metre, and the pine bark is about 0.4, and the cocoa peat is probably somewhere about the same. So you'd end up, cubic metre of that stuff. I know we're not planting a cubic metre of soil, but I'm just talking in volumes to make it simple for myself. If you were to mix, say, pumice and diatomite, zeolite and pine bark, you'd end up somewhere around, 0.6. For a tonne, you'd end up with about 500 or 600 kilos. So for a 100 litre pot, 50, 60 kilo, and then you've got water in there as well, which adds weight, and the tree itself. But I don't know when you've got 100 litre pots. Generally, pots tend to be at their biggest about that, and they tend to be trays. But,
You mix the different particles together. What proportion would you have of each one?
Well, again, it depends on your own preference. If you have a really open mix, like that's just clay, this is like a hard clay,
Yeah.
so that's really open. That dries out relatively quickly. So the more open your mix is, in summer on those hot windy days, the air just tears through it and it'll dry out really fast. So if you have finer particles in your soil, that slows the air movement down quite a bit, and it also, finer particles have more surface area, so moisture tends to hang around them a bit more. It really depends on how you want to grow, and to some extent, I have basic sort of mixes, but to some extent I almost don't want to get into dictating you have to have this and that, because it's
a lot of it depends on the conditions of your own garden.
Yeah, and it also depends on you. It's like your jar of coffee, it's like your cup of coffee or whatever. How much do you put in? How much sugar? How much?
Yeah.
How much milk?
How often you want to water?
Yeah, and feed and all that sort of thing. And is it in the, is it in the sun, in the shade? And it just depends to a great extent on yourself, how often you water and all of that sort of thing. But these mixes here are fairly open, but there's enough fine material in there. There's about 20% cocoa peat in there. It's about a quarter of each really. One of them has pumice in it, one of them doesn't. It's about 25% each, and there's a little bit of zeolite in there. And the reason I put that in is it works really well. It holds on to excess fertiliser, and then it's almost like a natural slow release. So over time, if you over fertilise, it'll soak a lot of it up, and then it'll just let it go. It doesn't mean you can rely on that stuff, but people use it to great effect to reduce the amount of fertiliser that they need to use. And it gets used in pool filters to purify water, all of that sort of thing. So it does have quite a few benefits, some of which are quite technical and I don't want to get into them. But, you know, it can prevent toxicities in your soil, like, you know, if you have too much salt in there, it can kind of
Lock them away.
or stop that from,
Yeah.
you know, having any real
Have you
detrimental effect.
tested the pH of your different mixes?
Yeah, these mixes are around, they're fairly neutral. Once you mix everything together, it's fairly neutral. Your diatomite is it's an alkaline, it's more alkaline on the scale. It's around 8, it's a much better material to add in. It's a bit softer than it used to be. So the older stuff is a lot more brittle. This is actually the older one in here. I just grabbed that off the shelf and brought it down. That's the older one, and this is the newer one, so we can't see, but that breaks really easily. I feel like I'm out of the Colgate ad, and this one, you know, that's a really hard one actually. This one takes a bit more effort to break. And there's been some online on Bonsai, I'm not sure if any of you actually participate on that site. If you do, you would have read about someone had written a complaint on there about the Mount Sylvia diatomite turning to mush, and when you water it, and it's horrible and it's no good. I haven't found that problem. And talking to the owner of that quarry, he said, yeah, look, we get bad bags from time to time, and that was no doubt a bad bag. And I said, look, your product is definitely softer. He said, yep, that would be due to the kilning process. And you know, from my opinion, unless you're doing this to your soil every day, you know, mechanically disturbing the soil every day, then yeah, sure, you're going to pulverise a whole lot, and the whole lot's going to turn to mush on you anyway. If you're doing what you should be doing, which is potting the tree up and then watering it and feeding it, and then you know, scraping it off when it's repotting time, then you're not going to turn it into mush. It's going to stay fairly, you know, it's going to stay intact. Over time, yeah, it probably will break down because it's a wee bit softer, but it could also be where they are in a quarry. Myself dealing with quarries a lot, I find that quarries have their good years and their bad years. You can get awesome material one year, and then the next week, oh no, we're in a different bench now, and what we're pulling out is completely different material. So you know, it's a natural product, so to some extent it's a little bit unreliable.
The copra peat you're using, do you buy that as loose in bags?
I just get it in a huge big walking great bag. So it's loose.
Most of us would only notice the compressed block brick that you get from Bunnings, which is what I use. And I tend to add all sorts of mixture to the water when I hydrate it to put that food value into the copra peat.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I will sometimes do that myself. If someone is asking for a custard mix or something like that, then I will get, you know, some power feed and sea salt, because the diatomite, I can tip a 10-litre bucket of water onto a 35-litre bag of diatomite, and it won't get to the bottom. It'll sort of the top half, and it might penetrate a little bit, but it'll just soaks it up. I mean, it is a spill, you know, if oil tankers roll over or someone spills chemicals, you throw bags of the stuff on there and it'll soak it up and stop it from running into the drains if you get there quick enough. But it's got amazing absorption ability. So, I mean, does anyone have any questions, anything they want to know about anything in particular?
Yeah, the clay, I've never seen anyone use the clay into the soil, and I dug up a lot of that stuff myself because it held up so much water and there's so much movement with it. So you've got it in clumps of clay. Is that for its water retention? So you mix it through there in a small, like 5% part or something?
I just brought this stuff down merely as a you know, really just fun. I haven't used it in a potting mix. I'm going to try it. I'm going to try it on its own.
Because it's got minerals, right? So that's the whole
Yeah,
benefit.
it does have minerals. Even this stuff's got loads of calcium in it, the diatomite, so it's got benefits for your plants.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried rock minerals? You can get it sort of in a bag. What's the name? One of the guys in Gardening Australia talks about it all the time.
Yeah, look, I've tried. Rock dust. I mean, rock dust is wonderful stuff. It's just crushed up, available minerals. That's why weeds grow so well on the side of highways.
Would it be too dusty for a bonsai mix?
Well, potentially, yeah, because it's dust.
Yeah.
And myself working with stone and rocks and dust.
You wouldn't want too much of it anyway in a bonsai pot.
Yeah, what will happen is that stuff will just migrate to the bottom because it's pretty much soluble, and it will just form like a really clay, silty, almost. It's when you jump up and down on the beach and all the water comes up to the top around your feet. It's like that. But it's much finer. But it'll hold moisture and it'll pretty much stop water from getting out the bottom of the pot if it manages to clog up the drainage holes.
Does the clay get really soft and mucky in a mix?
This stuff, no doubt it would. And as I say, I just brought it down purely as a curiosity thing. I actually, recently just got hold of it, washed it, and put it in. I've had it in a pot, and I've just been testing it out in terms of how well it holds moisture over the weeks, sort of thing. So I'll wet it. Like this morning, I wet it, and so it's going to be a nice day. It's going to be windy, so I wet stuff, come home, sitting in full sun all day. The top, 15, 20 mil has got a dry exterior like that. So it's a lighter colour. Damn it. It's a lighter colour like that, and then underneath it's still holding, or it's still visibly damp. So over a 40-degree day in summer, it'll be interesting to see if anything survives in it. I think I might have to put something else in with it, like coca peat, to actually make it hold its moisture and stop the air just tearing through it.
Is that a baked clay?
To my knowledge, no, it's not.
Right.
And I read up about the Japanese products, and that's a hardened clay, and I don't know if this is much different, to be quite honest. Without seeing the two next to each other and poking and prodding at them, it's hard to tell. And as I say, it's not something that I'm only playing around with it, put it that way. So I don't know.
Have you ever tried using, say, crushed terracotta?
No, I haven't. I've tried the ceramic, like the hydroponic stuff. But it's a little bit touch and go. Like, it doesn't hold that much moisture. Might hold maybe 40-50%.
Most of the hydroponic stuff is in big granules, and they're a bit too big, really.
Yeah. So, I find also in terms of cost, like to get that stuff, pumice it just kills it anyway. As far as aeration of the soil and moisture retention, all that sort of thing, pumice and diatomite just kill it.
So your pumice, when you get that, what mill do you get, and do you do any crushing yourself? Do you order bigger things, or you just?
God, no. I have 2 children. Not for that. No, it just comes. It comes from New Zealand. It gets graded and sent over. It comes in either 1 to 4 mil. No doubt you can get dust as well, but that's not much good to you, because that will do the same as any other rock dust. It will just compact and form a clay. 1 to 4 mil, 1 to 7 mil, 4 to 10 mil, and 7 to 20 mil are the size grades. Most
you get 1 to 4 pretty much for you or?
I don't get much demand for it. I tend to just supply the 1 to 7 mil because it's got pretty much everything in it. And if you have a sieve, then you simply just sieve out the bigger stuff, like the 5 to 7 mil stuff. Either use that to aerate soil in a larger pot, or put it on the bottom of your pot if you're using the pumice in a mix. Then you just use it as a drainage layer, perhaps, or you chuck it in a bag and give it to someone else who wants it. I I can get the 1 to 4 mil stuff, but I don't have huge demand for it, so I don't often get it. And in saying that, the 4 to 10 mil stuff, I recently got a load of it, and I was intending to use it for my azalea, and it's all gone. So can't predict what people will want all the time. So I have had people wanting the 1 to 4 mil, and I've just said, look, I'll just seed out the larger stuff for you, and give you 1 to 4 mil out of the 1 to 7.
So if you were to say, look, if you, over your experience, everyone sort of seems to have their own mix.
Yeah.
But for you, you seem quite into the soil and mixes. What's been the best all-round mix with the combinations of different things that we have a good all-round base, and why?
For me, I find I like my azalea, and let's use that as an example. I made a mix of would have been about maybe 50-60% pumice, about 10-15% perlite, 10% zeolite, and I think the rest might have been diatomite, and so it was a purely inorganic mix. And so I had I should have brought it down. I had 2 azalea, about pretty much the same size. I grown them in cuttings. I put them in a tomato box, and I just put a foam divider in between the 2, so they're both getting exactly the same sun, the same water. So one had inorganic mix, and then I cut about 30% of the coca peat into the other side, and the one with the coca peat just outpowered the inorganic one. Now that's probably due to the fact that I only water, probably once a day, except on those really stinking hot days where I water in the morning and come home and water in the afternoon.
So what was that combination mix?
It was about 50-60% pumice, 10% zeolite, I think about 10-15% perlite, and the rest would, 10% would have been diatomite. So it was kind of like, what have I got here? And I just sort of mixed it up, and I thought azalea likes a more acidic soil, so I didn't put too much diatomite in there, given that that's a pH of 8.
And how much of the copper peat did you add to the other?
About 30%. So
what was the other 70%?
the other 70%, well, it'll just be like if you mix up, I'm lucky I paid attention in maths.
You're quite very much,
Okay, if you went from 50%, that'd be 80%. If it was 60%, that'd be 90%. And there'd be another 10% of something else.
Yeah,
So it's very rough.
Yeah, so, look, for me it was just, that'll do that. And I didn't write it down.
I do tend to use a pot. And I'll have one part of this and one part of that and one part of something else or so forth, and that tends to work for me. Or 2 parts of this and 1 part of that.
Yeah, well that's how I made these up. I just had, the old honey bucket, like the litre of honey or kilo of honey, and I just, bucket full of that, bucket full of that, bucket full of that, and mix it up, and there it is.
So what does a zeolite bring to the mix? I've heard of zeolite, but I'm not sure what it actually is.
It'll hold some moisture. Some guys use it 50-50, but you're sort of wasting it if you're using it 50-50 in my opinion, because the guys that's it there, so it's quite a hard material. It's pretty much like blue metal or crushed basalt. It's very, or like polyamide, it's very hard, gritty stuff. It'll hold about 30% of its volume in moisture, so not a huge amount, but it's got this kind of magic ability to store nutrients. And it has a very high cation exchange, so it's in the thousands, whereas pine bark is, might be 100 or something like that. And the cation exchange basically allows positive and negative electrons to bounce off the particles, and that is either going to improve or decrease the plant's ability to pick up fertilisers off the surface of it. So that stuff is just dynamite, and that's why people use 50% of that, 50% of pumice or pine bark or whatever, because they think the more of that they put in, it's just going to be awesome. But it doesn't necessarily mean that. People that manufacture it recommend it at 5% to whatever soil, whether it's your veggie patch or your potting mix. They say 5%. I put 10% in just to sort of give it a little bit extra, but I don't think 50% is worthwhile, because it's not like it's cost $2 a tonne or anything like that. So you don't want to just go wasting the stuff. Its abilities, it has great abilities with holding on fertiliser and making fertiliser more readily available to the plant roots.
So it sucks in, it absorbs, right?
And it's kind of, it'll stop this thing called ammonium toxicity, which I haven't really quite got my head around, but it basically, you know, if you're using, say, slow release fertilisers, and in summer when it heats up, a lot of slow release fertilisers have that jacket on them that it doesn't really release nutrients under a certain temperature, but once it warms up, and especially on those really hot days, they just open up and become very porous, and they just dump all of their stuff out into the soil. So this will actually do a good job of sort of soaking up a lot of that excess stuff, hanging onto it, and then leaching it out, you know, throughout the rest of the year. And other thing too is its physical property. Like I liken it to you know, putting quartz into your mix, because it's nice and hard, and it'll you know, it keeps the mix nice and open, and it allows the roots to sort of hit it, bounce around it. And I don't know how true it is. You know, some people say if you have sharp particles, I actually don't really believe it, but sharp particles mean you get lots of sharp angles in your trees, and round particles mean you get really soft curves. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it depends on, you know, where your tree's growing and how often you feed it water.
Does it actually release? Is there actually any nutrients in the stone itself?
In the zeolite, there are nutrients in it, but it's very hard, so it's going to take a long time to break down. Whereas the diatomite's softer, and over time it is going to break down, it is going to release the calcium that's on the surface. It's a softer material, and the clay is quite soft as well, so whatever materials are in that, you know, I can break that up with my fingers. I could stand here and turn it into dust, but I'm not going to. You know, whatever minerals you're in that, the plant's just going to soak it up, and then whatever's left is going to wash out the bottom of the pot. I have noticed with that, just out of curiosity, when I water it, you just get this light sort of milky, you know, like if you have a cup of milk, you drink it all, and there's like a tiny few drops of milk at the bottom, you fill it up with water, it's sort of milky. So you get this sort of milky water washing out the bottom of that. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see if anything happens with it. You know, when you put a plant in there, how it turns out in 12 months when you tip it out.
You know, you talked about azaleas in the mix. Have you tried other things such as pines, for instance?
Yeah, pines. I like to have a bit of a scattergun approach, so I'll try and grow everything. I try to grow everything at once to see how everything grows. And yeah, things started dying because we didn't have time to tend to it all. So I've scaled back. But your deciduous, you know, that's a basic mix. You can grow anything in it pretty much, unless something like super acidic or super alkaline soil, and pretty much everything grows. This guy's got a question though.
I just wanted to know what's in those two there.
This one of these has got pumice in it, which is probably this one. It's got about 20% pumice, 20% diatomite, 20% pine bark, 20% coca peat, and the rest is zeolite. And sorry, it's only got 10% zeolite in it, so it's probably more like 22% of all of the other components. And that one is just, that one there is about 30% diatomite, 30% pine, 20% coca peat, and 10% zeolite. So, you know, the only difference is this one has pumice in it, and this one doesn't. One thing I have found with pumice is that, especially when I've been recutting my maples and my deciduous stuff, is get lots of nice fine roots. So it was like combing hair when I was taking the soil off. It was like combing hair, as opposed to more open mixes. It's sort of the stuff just falls off, and you have got coarser roots. Because there's lots of air pockets in this stuff, and even though, I don't know, does that look round? Can anyone see that? That's really hopeless of me. But it looks round to me, but it's actually quite rough. You put it under a microscope, it's very rough on the surface, which means, you know, it does have a lot of surface area on it, as opposed to, I don't know, a ball of quartz or something, or a piece of quartz or a piece of blue metal, which isn't as rough as that.
Damian, have you brought any bags with you on the makings or not?
I actually have brought down 2 bags of pumice, because Jeff said someone got pumice 1 to 7 mil pumice. I didn't want to bring anything down tonight because one, I can have heaps of time to load the stuff in, and two, not being sure, you know. So, yeah, and I'm also, you know, waiting on some material to come in. So, to some extent, until later this week, I can't actually start making new batches.
I've got a question. It's Aaron, by the way. How are you? I've had trouble in the past. I've fiddled around with a few different mixes over the last 5 years or so, but had trouble with some of them with water table in the pot.
Yep.
You know, areas of the pot, you know, becoming very wet where the rest of it's at a nice, nice moisture. And how do you ensure that you've got a nice even spread of moisture through the pot rather than one spot being wet and other spots not?
That's a good question. Look, I found, again, going back to azalea, there was a place down called Camellia Lodge, and they were closing, and I snapped up all of these Satsky azaleas, and I thought, awesome, get them before they close. But they've been sitting there for God knows how long in 200 ml pots, and so they've been in the nursery for, you know, have a trunk on like that, for example, or whatever. They've been sitting in pots in that same potting mix, and when the nursery gets, you know, a commercial nursery's got a pot, they just sort of tickle the outside of the rinse and shove it in a bigger pot, tickle the outside, shove it in a bigger pot, and so on and so on. So they don't actually tease it out, comb it out, cut any roots off, dig out the dead soil or dead roots or anything like that. So I lost a lot of those because they had this ball of this crummy old potting mix around the centre of the roots. And because this is in, you know, early on, and I was afraid to do anything about it, so I thought, oh, I'll kill it, and then I soon learned that you can pretty much just treat them like rubbish and they'll keep growing. But, you know, so it's sort of, to some extent, it might depend on how you're watering, you know, how thick the roots might be in one particular area, whether there's a clod of old soil in one particular area and that's become hydrophobic and water's sort of bouncing off that and running around. So it's hard to say, you know, without seeing it, it's really hard to say what might be going on.
Yeah.
I mean, we cleaning all the soil off, all the old soil off when we were
Yeah,
repotting.
the worst one that I've come across was dynamite, pine bark nuggets, and cocoa peat.
Yep.
And really sloppy in the bottom of the pot after about a year and a half being in there. Yeah.
It went dry.
Just in that bottom inch of the pot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a known fact that at least the bottom inch of the pot will always be extra wet on any pot. It doesn't matter if it's a 10-inch pot that deep or a 2-inch pot this deep. The last bottom inch will always be saturated.
That's why I said earlier I put whatever I've got. I might have I might have been working somewhere where I've been using 25 to 20 mil ballast for something, for drainage or whatever, and I've got half a ute of it left, so I'll put it in a pile at home and I'll throw it in the bottom of my pots, so that, because even that will have a water table for a while. Water's going to go down, it's going to hit the bottom, and then, especially on those super wet periods, or if you're watering every day, it's the bottom of the pot's going to stay pretty wet. And it depends partly too, if the bottom of the pot's got, let's say there's a drainage hole, but the pot sags like that, instead of pulling down towards the bottom where the drainage hole is, then water's going to sit in those low spots and then just get absorbed back up, and then it's just going to keep collecting and bouncing up and down until maybe the tree can soak it up. But everything's got a water table of sand, like a good pile of sand, like brick sand or concrete sand on the concrete slab. It rains, the bottom few inches of it is soaking wet, and the top will be still nice and fluffy. Even though it's been pouring rain, because everything sort of drains, settles down, hits the bottom and bounces up a bit, but then gravity sort of pulls it back down again. Look at, I don't know, was it compost and pine? Was it just like sieved potting mix from out of the bag, or?
Yeah, it was the nuggets that I got from Collector's Corner and the block of dried
Coconut.
coconut from
Yeah,
Rome.
well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe. And you had no ballast in the bottom, no big chunky rocks in the bottom.
No, just straight in. So
Yeah, that may be the reason why. Also with soils, like you can put, let's say you can put a layer of, I know in landscape, a lot of guys will often just tip, it'll be, so a machine will come in, scrape out all of the soil, for garden beds and all of that sort of thing, and then the landscape will come in and just tip new soil out, and they won't mix it in with the existing stuff.
yeah.
So what will happen is you get like a wedding cake of soils, and there's no integration between the two layers, so water will travel down through the new stuff and just hit the old stuff and it'll just sit there. So it creates false water tables. So even if I'm putting big stuff in the bottom of the pot, then that's what I was saying at the start. Sometimes I fiddle around with layers of soil in the pot, and so I'll mix a little bit of semi sort of coarse stuff into the really coarse stuff, and then I'll sort of build up from there. If I've got time and I want to be really fussy, then I'll do that. But a lot of the time, like I said, I'll just put the ballast in, then I'll just chuck a handful of stuff in, mix it through a little bit into the ballast, and then I'll throw the bulk of this in, put my plant in, and then work with the soil in amongst the roots and put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
Just a quick question of when we do the grasping of the soil both times, is it that the whole idea is it's not supposed to bunch together? It should be just
Yeah, it should
loose
It should be
and fall
nice.
apart.
It
Is that
should
right?
be nice and open. If it's going to stick together, that means it's going to compact. Like you go and pick up some clay, some dry clay or some damp clay, and do that with it. It'll just form a solid wall. It'll just compact. So
Yeah.
watering will compact it, whereas water's not really going to compact this stuff too much because it's nice and open. It means water's going to penetrate nicely into it, and air can move through it as well. And if your mix has that characteristic where it's fairly open, when you do water, you water, and then as the water, you watch the water on when you've got time, and you watch the water in the pot, and it just goes, and it all comes out the bottom, and it sucks all the air through as well. So that's very good for your tree, very good for the root system. Nice fresh air into the soil. Yeah.
Do you always start with ballast?
I do, yeah. Even if I've just got a like a plastic pot like that, I'll always chuck a couple of bucketfuls. So I've got a layer of about that much in the bottom. I always put it in whatever I've got. So whether it's chunky quartz pebble like that, scoria, blue metal, whatever I've got my hands on, I'll throw it in the bottom. Just that inch layer or whatever it is, and then I'll go up from there.
When you're saying sort of, say for example, it's that size pot,
Yep.
what what inch stone of blue metal would you use?
Oh, I just, about that much,
But like
25, 30 mil, it depends what mood I'm in.
But the size of the stone, so it would be like 7 mil stone, or
Oh, yeah, it'll be 7 mil, it'll be 20 mil, 5 to 20 mil is really good because it's sort of open enough, but it'll stop, all your fine stuff. If you use just 20 mil or 40 mil railway ballast, then all your fine stuff's going to fill in the gaps anyway, it's just going to wash in.
okay.
And that, so there's a limit though, because you don't want to fill the damn thing up halfway and then the pot just becomes too heavy and the bottom falls out and you pick it up or something like that. It's just enough to stop that, like Adam was talking about, stop that water table from happening in the bottom. And you're still going to get a little bit of water table, but it's pretty free draining. And eventually, I know with my azalea, I was doing tomato boxes one year and I was filling up with 7 mil sand. Just filling up the bottom, say 25 mil with 7 mil sand. And then I put my mix on top of that and put my plant in there. And after 2 years, I thought, just better repot that and turn it upside down. And the bottom of the box, all the sand is full of azalea roots. So they've just gone straight down into the sand. And there's like a mat of roots in the bottom of it. Because they're obviously just sucking up all the water and the nutrients that was going straight down to the bottom. So, sometimes I didn't expect that to happen. I was thinking that all the roots would be in this nice, juicy, fertile, composty soil that I put them into, that they were in there, but there's a heap of them down at the bottom of the pot as well.
Thank you.
I've found that the copper peat does tend to, it basically composts down very, very quickly.
Yeah, I disagree a little bit there. Yeah, I've had plants that I've forgotten about, and I've realised, oh yeah, I better repot that, and I've quickly repotted it, and I found, oh, that's one that I potted up in coca peat and decomposed granite and whatever, and the coca peat was still in a fairly intact form.
It is in intact form. I've found I use it straight for cuttings.
Yep.
And cuttings absolutely adore it, especially when I add all the extra liquid nutrients to it. But if you use the fresh coca peat, you find it's sort of a pale colour. When you take the cuttings out, it's gone a dark chocolate brown because it has actually composted down quite a bit.
Yeah. All right.
And that might be the problem with yours, maybe too much copper peat.
Maybe.
Possible. But you know, I find that if it starts to break down, it doesn't all just disappear to the bottom of the pot and fall
No.
downwards. It'll stay where it is and it'll hold its shape. So, yeah.
Do you find the loose cocoa peat better than the block?
Well, the
I
block is,
find the loose one a lot more easy to work with.
yeah, the block is, you know,
Plus you don't have to wet it before you.
yeah, it's straight out easier.
Yeah.
You don't have to go and get your bucket.
And of course, there's a lot of different brands around. Is there a particular one you use or?
There are a few different ones around, and they all either come from Sri Lanka or India, and most of the ones that are available, there's occasionally you get some get imported, just like zeolite and diatomite that get imported and they're no good. But most of the ones that are commercially available at the moment are pretty good. You know, I guess people wouldn't be using them or selling them for a long period of time if they weren't any good. Kind of use the amount of time they've been on the market as a bit of a litmus test for how good they are. There have been diatomites from different parts of Queensland and stuff that have come onto the market and they've just been salty and horrible. And the same with zeolite. There was one that came over from New Zealand that I think there's a company up in Queensland and they've got a whole stack of the stuff they're trying to get rid of, and it's no good because it's full of salt. You mix it in with your trees and it kills them. So yeah, you kind of got to be careful where you get it from, get your stuff from. But yeah, coca peat, whether it's loose or in the brick. I mean, if it's in the brick, you're just going to make it loose anyway. You put it in a bucket and turn it into loose material. So if I run out, then yeah, I'm in the car and I'm off to Big W, buy some bricks for myself. So it doesn't matter too much really. Yeah. It's the same stuff, it's just in a compressed form.
The potting mix that you use, the pine bark, do you have any particular brand that you prefer? If you're one of the general ones that are around?
I don't use any potting mixes like off the shelf, like any of the pine bark potting mixes that you could buy in the nursery or anything like that. I know some people use the Devco stuff like the cactus one and they'll mix that in with whatever else they want to mix. But you know, a lot of the cheaper ones, you get composted rice hulls and stuff like that in it. And
Composted sawdust as well.
And yeah, and God knows what. And you just...
And it's not usually really very well composted either.
Well, you just don't know what you're getting because it's cheap and it's cheap for a reason. And I like a good potting mix too. You know, if you've got a nice tree, my analogy is you've got a nice tree, you feed it with nice stuff and you grow it in nice stuff. You've got a nice car, you don't put metho in it to run it, and you don't put
Can you get a sort of a 5 to 7 mil composted orchid bark?
Yeah, that's what that one is.
That's what you've got there, is it?
Yeah. So it's aged and composted, so it'll last. It won't break down overnight or within a year. It'll stay. It'll hold its composition quite well for a couple of years.
So it's better to go for the orchid bark.
I would say so, yeah. Rather than just your off the shelf stuff because you don't know.
You don't know what's in it, exactly. Okay.
Anyone else want to pick my brains? Yes.
If we had a mix, 25% diatomite,
Yep.
25% hummus, 35% cocoa peat, and 25%
On that.
nuggets,
Yep.
We grow everything and anything in there.
You pretty much could, yeah. It's pretty much just an all-rounder, you know. Some people are fussy with black pine maybe, and they might want to open it up a bit more. But overall, you can grow pretty much everything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one, is it?
Hmm.
We'll have that.
Yep. Okay.
Very good. You sell it all mixed or not?
I do, yeah, I do. I sell, you know, raw materials and mixed as well, because some people don't want to mix it up. They'd rather
Is
just
there
buy-
an option for the
And,
club to
you
buy
know,
a whole
just-
part?
It depends on you. You might want to make your own stuff because your own mixes because you've got your own way of doing things. And for me, I do that. Even though if I've got leftover stuff, yeah, that'll do, and I'll pot up in it. But sometimes I get fussy and plants like different, you know, slightly different things. So, but overall, one mix will do pretty much everything.
Are you going to sell it through the club or do you leave cards and then contact you? Or
I can,
We're going to do it through the club.
yeah,
leave
I
card?
can
We're going to do it through the club.
Watering that mix that we said, 4 of each,
Yep.
25% of each, no problem watering once a day,
no problem watering once a day. You know,
hot days twice.
hot days, perhaps twice, and it takes, you know, just like anything, it takes a bit of a scratch test perhaps, you know, scratch it a bit, see how damp it is, you know, a centimetre under the surface or something like that. That's what I always do, just give it a scratch if I'm not sure. I've been playing around with this stuff, it's a composted seagrass, it's like a, you know, when it's in its bagged form, it's damp like this. It's damp and it's nice and dark and rich and celery and whitish. And I thought, oh, what have I done? And I've been using it as just experimenting with it as a top dressing, like a deciduous. I've top dressed around the surface of the pot because I've put it in I put the plant in a nice open mix. But then I thought, oh, I want to slow that and move it down, so I put this compost around the top. And I know that all the fines are going to wash into the mix and eventually it's going to clog it up. I'm going to repot it with 12 months, so it doesn't matter. It's not going to go to the bottom, cause a water table issue, and give the plant wet feet, kill it. It's just I'm going to repot it, it doesn't matter.
Have you checked that for salt?
It's composted. It's cleaned out. And the salt taken out, or pretty much all of the salt taken out.
Okay.
And it's not going to kill my trees, but and look, it's been on there for a couple of months, and there's no salt crystals. There's a lot of stuff in these terracotta pots, and there's no salts showing up on there, so I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
You get more salt out of Osmocote.
Yeah, it's a good indication in the terracotta pots.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So what's happening, Jeff?
Question? I missed one.
No, we're happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You had any beneficial microorganisms in there in your soil?
Look, you probably find that if you're watering, say you're using sea salt or power feed or Charlie Carper or something like that, or like the Seedmongers fertiliser, which I think is a really nice fertiliser, because it's not like dynamic lift, it'll burn the life out of your roots. That'll add those microorganisms to the soil. So most of this stuff's pretty sterile. Like it's that stuff's, the pine is composted. That's going to kill off most of the microbes that might be living in it. And the zeolite, the diatomum, the pumice, and all that, and the coca peat, it's all sterile.
How would they affect, some plants need parasites to help them live?
Yeah, they
How
do.
do they affect?
Oh, look, if you've got, say, black pine, for example, or azalea,
I know some of the Australian natives, like acacia, they have that little bulbous thing on the roots.
yeah. Well, if it's got that, is that an nematode?
Yeah.
If it's got that on the roots, then that's going to spread. It's an infection in the plant. Like even with the azalea, it has I forget what it's called right now. It's a beneficial fungus.
Mycorrhiza.
Yeah, it infects the root and it gets into the plant, so it's in there. So unless you take all of that stuff off and then put fungicides all over it and all of that sort of thing, then I don't see an issue with it. It'll just recolonise. I found that, say, indigo pine or black pine or something like that, it's got all that nice white fluffy stuff around the root cake, and it's in there. The soil's infested with it, and I'm not removing all of the soil in those cases, so you're basically planting a colony of this stuff back into fresh soil, and because it's fresh and sterile, it's just going to recolonise. It'll just say, yeah, I've got no competition in here, I'm going crazy.
Yeah, no, just being if it's really too coarse, most of it get washed away.
No, if it's in the roots, no. Like if if these things, the nematodes are on the roots of your wattle, then it's attached to the roots. It's not
Yeah,
gonna
no,
wash
I
away.
understand, but I mean, like your microsorbs in your black pine and stuff like that, because that's basically not actually growing in the roots, it's more so in the soil, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's going to migrate through the soil. Like if you look at a mushroom, like you get bags of mushroom compost from a nursery, get them at the right time of the year, you look at the bag and it's full of mushrooms. There might have been like one shred of mushroom that, or a few spores or a heap of spores that got buried into the bag, or some parts of the mushroom that got buried into the bag, and then it'll just colonise the whole soil mix again and start growing. So
Would that be beneficial to some bonsai, mushroom compost?
I don't know. I think
No, I'm just asking because I put that on my veggie garden and my veggies seem to love it.
I reckon it's too pulpy and it's too soft and pulpy. I wouldn't do it because I've done it with azalea when I was about 12 or 13. I put an azalea into mushroom compost and pine bark, and it grew like crazy. But
That's what I mean, yeah.
but that wasn't that. It grew in there for 2 years and then it started to. Because, I didn't know anything about trimming roots or anything like that.
Well, overdose, did it overdose?
Maybe it was very fertile. There's mushroom compost is horse manure and hay, and water or whatever it is. So it's extremely fertile stuff. But whether or not it's good in a pot over a
Yeah, no, I just thought I'd ask because I haven't tried it myself.
I would give it a try.
Well, I used it in the veggie garden and the veggies love it.
Yeah, all I can say is give it a shot, but you never know. But I think I've tried compost. I have liquid apple trees at home, and the compost out of those is quite good when you compost the leaves down, but I found that each it blocks up the pores too quickly because it's all fine, and it just sort of goes to the bottom.
And how do you find with raising your pots up so you get airflow up to the bottom of your pots?
Sorry?
How do you go with the soil if you raise your pots up so you've got airflow underneath your pots as well?
Oh yeah, look, as I was saying earlier, if you've got a really open mix, the air is going to move through it. If you've got one mesh or something like that, there's nothing stopping the air moving through the soil. Whereas if you cover the top with some finer material perhaps, whether it's stable moss or whatever, and just damp the air movement down a bit, stop it from really, ripping through the mix. I found I've experimented with pumice and just straight pumice and growing azalea in that, and it grows fine, but I found I wasn't able, once a day wasn't enough water for it. I had to water it at least twice a day for it to keep going up. What I found is it would grow and it wilt over summer, and then I'd come home and water it, and it'd be okay, but every day it wilted. It was getting sicker and sicker until I'd come home and it was dead. So, yeah, look, if you're on a race, this stuff should be okay because it's open, but it's got enough fine material in it that air's not just going to jet through it and dry it out. It should stay fairly down.